My name is Ehsan Teleri. I'm originally from Afghanistan and I have lived in Australia since December 2009. I am a Rotary Peace Fellow. I recently completed my Peace Fellowship in Chulalongkorn University in Thailand, and I work in the diversity and inclusion space with a local council.
My name is Group Captain Annette Holin. I'm an orthopaedic surgeon currently serving in the Royal Australian Air Force as a reservist, and I'm also an orthopaedic surgeon working here in Melbourne at Monash Children's Hospital. And I joined Defence in 2000 to provide service with the UN in East Timor, where I served as a surgeon with the Australian Forces in Dili, and I served there in 2000 and 2001 and subsequently in the Solomon Islands with the Navy. Although as an Air Force officer, we had a surgical capability on a ship, and I've subsequently served on disaster response in Indonesia and I've had 3 tours of duty in the Middle East.
My name is Tanya Miletic. I'm the Assistant Director of the Initiative for Peace Building at the University of Melbourne, and we're working to bring together researchers and people who have been focused on looking at conflict and how we approach it through peace building both in Australia and in our region. And we also are interested in bringing in opportunities to engage with other researchers, practitioners and peace builders working in this area, and how we can support those who are best placed to respond to conflicts and build peace from where they are.
I'm Margaret Beavis. My connection with peace and peace building is a health one. I have a background as a GP. I have a strong interest in public health. For many years I've been a member of the Medical Association for Prevention of War, and MAPW, as we call it, founded ICAN, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, and I'm currently co-chair of ICAN.
Peace for me is that it's not only the absence of war, it is how you feel. It is about justice. Peace without justice means nothing. Now, a good example is my country, Afghanistan. There's no war. The war kind of finished. But is there justice? Do people feel safe to go out to express themselves? Do they have the freedom of expression? No, they don't. So for me, peace is beyond just absence of war. Peace is about justice. Peace is about freedom of expression. Peace is about how safe you feel in your mind and how confident you feel to go and express yourself.
I think peace is about us living together, acknowledging the needs of other people and being able to share our resources, because the planet's a bit restricted in how much it can give us, so we can't continue fighting over the limited resources. We have to be able to work together, and that's about understanding people who are different to us and to how we were raised, and appreciating the value they bring to our society and our operations together.
I've come to learn that peace means different things to different people at different times, and so what peace might look like is really about how we understand peace as something that isn't fixed or rigid that we arrive at, but something that we have to keep moving towards.
Peace is a very illusory thing. It's so easy to be shattered. And I think a peaceful society is one where people coexist. Lots of different viewpoints can be put forward. We can change governments with elections. I think it's wonderful that we can do that.
The biggest threat to peace at the moment is that we often think that peace is a goal, we go and get it. from my perspective, from what I have studied, in many, many years of my life, peace is a process. Peace is fragile. Peace is breakable. But when I say peace is a process, you have to have patience. You have to be consistent. You have to be committed, and you have to work very hard to achieve that process of peace building.
I think one of the biggest threats to peace at the moment is some personal attributes in a need for us to not be able to appreciate our abundance of what we already own and we already have, and that we have the opportunity to share that with other people. So I also see the big threat for us in our region as climate change and our ability to act on that, because it's the loss of arable land, whether that's through drought or flooding rains, as we're currently experiencing in our country, that really deeply affects people's livelihoods and forces population shifts. And that's where conflict comes into being, or people fight over what's left.
At a deeper level, I think unbridled political ambition combined with weapons manufacturers that are very successful at lobbying, very successful at, I think it was one of the American presidents back in the early 60s who warned about the rise of the military-industrial complex. And I think certainly in America it's extremely powerful, and it's increasingly powerful in Australia as a lobby group.
We are seeing increasing violent conflicts. We have very complex global challenges that relate to climate change-induced changes and risks to security. We have heightened concern and risk for nuclear threats. And so we're all acutely aware of some of the threats and challenges we have. What we don't have is enough attention on understanding what we can be doing to support the most effective and impactful non-violent approaches to conflicts and contemporary challenges. So what I think are the greatest risks are also related to not just how we're preparing or responding to some of these risks, but how we're thinking about, well, what are our opportunities to support preventative dialogue and diplomacy?
I would like to read a piece of poetry from a great Persian poet, one of the greatest Persian poets, Sadi Shirazi, that says, بنی آدم اعضای یکدیگرند که در آفرینش ز یک گوهرند، چو عضو به درد آورد روزگار، دیگر عضوها را نماند قرار. تو که از مهنت دیگران بیغمی، نشاید که نامت دهند آدمی. The English translation is, human beings are body parts of each other. In creation, they are indeed of one essence. If a body part is afflicted with pain, other body parts uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you shall not retain. When I read this piece of poetry, it tells me a lot. It is about that humanity. It's about that global village concept. When we are talking about peace, when we are talking about conflict, anything that happens in any part of the world, that the pain of other people will be affecting you.
To ask if peace is attainable is very difficult. I think you can't prevent all wars, but you can do an awful lot to reduce the numbers of wars and the size of wars. And the way to do that is not rocket science. The way to do that is to work really hard on dialogue and diplomacy. Foreign aid also helps, but I think it's really important to use the statecraft that diplomacy provides, use the dialogue I was lucky enough to go to the United Nations when we were negotiating the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. And it was almost magical to sit in a room and see all these different countries talking to each other. And because of the instantaneous translation, they could all discuss things and have debates. And it was really wonderful to see all these different points of view being put and other people being there to listen and to talk.
My hopeful heart, I think that peace is attainable, but I think that takes actions on our part as members of the community. It's not just political will. We absolutely require political will, but I think it requires individual approaches by every member of our community.
I am ever hopeful for a peaceful future, and the reason I'm hopeful is very pragmatic and principled, because wherever there are conflicts, there are always people working for positive change. And so my hope is born out of bearing witness to the everyday ways that so many people try to contribute to positive change, to greater justice, to supporting one another in those changes. And that's not just what we see by people touched by conflict, but by those people generationally who continue to understand the importance of trying to prevent conflict, to heal those who have been impacted, and to also work together to improve our social institutions, our governmental and everyday forms of peace that can support and make more robust what we were talking about in terms of some of those fragilities.
I'm a very optimistic person, and I always believe, as I mentioned earlier, in power of humanity. And I say that hope sustains the world. So if we do not have hope, if we lose hope, this world is over. And I believe that, with hope, with positivity, with that optimism, we are able to, go through very, very difficult situations. It could be conflict, it could be war, it could be really, really complex. But I think with hope, we can achieve, and we can see that light at the end of the tunnel. And we have in our language, in our culture, we say that after every night there's a day. So that's how I see when it comes to situation of war and conflict. I always think that not today, not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, but in some time, in years' time, there will be peace, and peace will prevail if we keep working hard, if we show commitment, and if we continue that consistent approach of and thinking that this world could be a beautiful place if it's a peaceful place.